The moment you expose her, the mask does not simply slip, it breaks apart. And what steps forward is not regret, it is fury. You might assume exposure brings accountability. It rarely does. Instead, it activates survival mode. And what she becomes next can reveal everything you were never supposed to see. If this feels familiar, pause for a moment and ask yourself whether you have been silenced by one of these transformations. Reflect quietly or share your experience, but do not ignore the pattern. Exposure destroys her carefully built false self because that false self is not just a performance. It is the framework holding her identity together. A narcissistic woman does not simply present herself in a flattering light. She constructs an entire persona designed to secure admiration, control perception, and avoid vulnerability. This persona might appear as confidence, charm, competence, or even victimhood, depending on what provides the most leverage in her surroundings. Beneath that surface is a fragile core built on deep insecurity and a powerful fear of being seen as flawed, ordinary, or powerless. When you expose her manipulation, dishonesty, or double standards, you are not merely criticizing behavior. You are confronting the illusion she relies on for psychological survival. The false self operates like armor. It filters how others see her and how she sees herself. Compliments strengthen it. Attention feeds it. Control stabilizes it. But exposure punctures it. When the gap between who she pretends to be and who she really is becomes visible, the internal tension becomes unbearable. That is why the reaction is often explosive. The collapse feels like humiliation, and humiliation is intolerable for someone whose identity revolves around superiority and image management. In that instant, she may experience what feels like ego disintegration. The carefully crafted narrative, the good woman, the misunderstood partner, the strong, independent figure collapses under scrutiny. Instead of integrating the truth and adjusting, she defends the illusion at any cost. The brain interprets exposure not as feedback, but as danger. Fight mode activates. Blame shifts outward. Denial becomes absolute. What you are witnessing is not simple resistance to growth. It is structural panic. The false self was never flexible. It was rigid, polished, and defensive. When you expose her true nature, you remove the mirror she relies on for validation and replace it with accountability. That psychological rupture feels like an attack rather than an awakening. Her first reaction is rage rather than reflection because reflection requires stability, and in that moment she has none. When a narcissistic woman is confronted with the truth about her behavior, especially in a way that others can witness or confirm, her nervous system does not interpret it as constructive criticism. It registers it as a direct strike against her identity. The exposure pierces the illusion of control and superiority she works constantly to maintain. Instead of pausing to consider whether your words hold truth, her mind immediately shifts into defense. Rage becomes the shield. This rage is not always loud. Sometimes it appears as explosive yelling, insults, personal attacks, and threats. At other times, it becomes icy and precise, cold remarks, calculated humiliation, or silent withdrawal meant to punish you. Beneath both expressions lies the same psychological process: avoidance of shame. Deep, unprocessed shame sits at the center of narcissism. Exposure activates that shame. Because she cannot tolerate feeling small or flawed, she converts it into anger. Anger feels powerful, while shame feels annihilating. Reflection would require acknowledging imperfection and admitting that her actions caused harm. That degree of vulnerability feels dangerous because it destabilizes the grandiose self-image she depends on. Instead of thinking, perhaps I need to change, the internal story becomes, how dare you challenge me? The focus moves away from the content of your message and onto the audacity of you speaking at all. In this state, logic rarely works. Evidence does not calm her. Calm communication does not soften her. The rage can escalate rapidly because the objective is no longer resolution. The objective is restoring dominance. If she can intimidate you into silence, overwhelm you emotionally, or make you doubt your own memory, she regains control of the narrative. What appears to be an overreaction is actually ego protection in crisis. The intensity of her anger often reflects the level of exposure. The closer you move to the truth, the louder the rage becomes because the illusion is cracking and she feels it slipping away. She may attempt to reverse the narrative and present herself as the victim because control over perception is everything to her. Once exposed, she understands consciously or unconsciously that the original storyline no longer protects her. So she creates a new one, and in this new version, she is not manipulative, deceptive, or harmful. She is misunderstood. She is attacked. She is unfairly judged. The shift can occur within seconds. One moment you are calmly pointing out behavior, and the next she is describing herself as hurt by your cruelty. This reversal is not random emotional chaos. It is a calculated survival strategy. If she can reposition herself as the injured party, she neutralizes the threat of exposure. People are wired to respond to vulnerability. Tears, trembling, softer tones, or dramatic storytelling can quickly redirect sympathy. Suddenly, others are consoling her instead of questioning her actions. The spotlight moves off her behavior and onto your supposed harshness. In more aggressive forms, the reversal becomes accusation. She may claim you are controlling, abusive, unstable, or projecting your own flaws. The language she uses may mirror the exact concerns you raised. This is psychological inversion. By assigning your observations to you, she destabilizes your credibility. If she can cause others to doubt your character, your exposure loses strength. There is also a quieter version of this tactic. She may not openly accuse you. Instead, she tells selective truths wrapped in distortion. She leaves out her provocations, exaggerates your reactions, and presents isolated moments without context. The result is a curated story that sounds believable but is deeply misleading. Because she delivers it with confidence, people often accept it without questioning further. The goal is not resolution. The goal is narrative dominance. When she controls the story, she controls the social outcome. If enough people believe her version, your truth becomes background noise. This reversal can leave you confused and questioning your own memory, especially if she appears genuinely distressed. Yet the timing reveals the strategy. The victim stance appears precisely when accountability enters the room because redefining herself as harmed restores the protection her exposed image can no longer provide. Smear campaigns frequently begin immediately after exposure because once her image is threatened, she moves quickly to secure it somewhere else. A narcissistic woman understands that reputation equals leverage. If she senses you might disrupt how others see her, she rarely waits to see what unfolds. She strikes first. The speed can be shocking. Within hours or days of being confronted, she may already be telling friends, family, co-workers, or even strangers a carefully edited version of events that paints you as unstable, jealous, abusive, or vindictive. This is not impulsive venting, it is strategic positioning. By speaking first, she frames the narrative before you have the chance. People tend to believe the first coherent story they hear, particularly if it is delivered with emotion and certainty. She may present herself as shocked by your sudden cruelty or as someone who tried everything to make things work. Selective screenshots, partial truths, and exaggerated claims can be used to construct credibility. The more convincing the story appears, the harder it becomes for you to defend yourself without seeming defensive. The smear campaign also serves another function: recruitment. She gathers allies. These allies may not realize they are being recruited, but they are. Sympathy turns into validation, and validation strengthens her belief that she is right and you are the problem. This social reinforcement stabilizes her shaken ego. It replaces the shame of exposure with the comfort of outside support. For you, the experience can feel surreal. People who once seemed neutral may grow distant. Mutual acquaintances might treat you with suspicion. You may feel pressure to explain yourself repeatedly, which drains your energy and credibility over time. The chaos is not accidental. It creates confusion, and confusion weakens resistance. At its core, the smear campaign is about containment. If she can discredit you, she neutralizes the threat you represent. Exposure loses impact when the exposure itself is framed as unreliable. It becomes an aggressive form of image management driven by the need to restore control over how others perceive her after her carefully constructed persona has been challenged.